Here we have two microscope slides, and on the one I have put a piece of plasticine to hold it. Now, glass is a polar material, and if that is true, then since positive attracts negative and negative attracts positive, one sheet of glass should attract the other and lift it up. So let's put it down there, press it on, lift it up, and it does attract. However, there are some voids between these two pieces of glass. These are polished microscope slides. They're not just ordinary glass, but there are some voids and the glass does fall. These are not glued together. They're just brought together by electric attraction. Now, if that's true, and if water is a polar molecule, H2O, then if we put some water on one of these slides, I have some colored water here in the plate, just put a little colored water here on one of the slides. Now if we press this down again, it should stick longer because the water fills the voids between the two pieces of glass and makes them stick better. So as you can see here, I'm pushing on this with my fingernail. I've pulled it to one side, pushing quite hard with my fingernail, and it's still held, as you can see and hear. So this is capillary action now that is holding these two pieces of glass together. Here I have two sheets of glass. They're not polished, just ordinary glass, but we'll put these two sheets of glass in the colored water. On this side, I have held them together. On this side, I'm putting my knife there to hold them just a little bit apart. Now, if water is a polar molecule, and if glass is a polar material, then there should be capillary action on this side and bring the water up between the two sheets. If I can get my fingers out of the way here, you can see gravity is pulling the water down and capillary action is pulling the water up. And if I make these two sheets of glass farther apart, the curve goes down more quickly. If I make them closer together, just barely the tip of the blade between them, then the water goes down more slowly, but always in a hyperbola. Y equals 1 divided by x. We studied these curves in high school, but we didn't invent them. Here is a part of the creation of God, capillary versus gravity, that has made a hyperbola. Water is a polar molecule, and there you can see the curve. Now there are little irregularities in the curve. I can try to get it a little better. It's not perfect, but you can imagine where the curve should be. A hyperbola. Not a parabola. It looks very much like a parabola, but it's a hyperbola. Very interesting. Part of the creation of God. Now, let's do something else. Very simple. We'll just tear off a piece of paper towel and dip the corner in the colored water. Capillary action is bringing the colored water up into the paper towel quite quickly, as you can see. Rises by capillary action. Let's do that again. We dip the tip of the paper towel into the colored water and watch the water rise in the paper towel. Capillary action. The paper attracts the water and it rises. The same principle is here in this plant. There are fine tubes in the stems of this plant that are formed by cells, and the water rises from the roots of the plant all the way to the leaves and the fruit, if there were any. This isn't a fruiting plant, but bananas and apples and everything we eat comes from this capillary action, that water is attracted. Here I have something very simple, a towel. Now, as you know, if we hang up this towel, it will dry completely. This towel was wet many times and has completely dried. However, in the soil in this plant, the soil doesn't completely dry. Evaporation pulls the water away from the surface of the soil, but capillary action pulls it down. And so when it rains, the water is held in the soil for a long time, even years. It doesn't rise to the surface, even though evaporation would pull it away. It stays down by capillary action, and it's available there for the roots of the plant. Now, wheat plants have roots that go several feet deep. Radishes are very, very little, very small roots. Wheat plants have roots that go more than 10 feet deep to use that water that has been stored in the soil. All these things, capillary action, gravity, all these things were created by God for our good and for our life. Let's look at a verse here in Colossians chapter 1. For by him all things that were created, that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created through him and for him. Powers. This is a power here, as you can see here in this paper towel. It's soaked up a little bit more. This is a power. Capillary action is a power. Quiet, small, slow power, but a power for life. Now let's turn over to John chapter 1. Because we see here in John chapter 1 that the focus of Christ when he came into this world was and always had been life. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That's Jesus. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. Whenever we study God's creation, we see something of his power. By colored water, we can show an invisible power into something we can see. And we always see in him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light of our lives is life in Christ. Thank you for watching.